Hi, it's Rob from the Brush and Boltgun. Today I'm going to be doing a tutorial on how to paint the top half of a Legio Tempestus Warlord Titan for Adeptus Titanicus. If you'd like to support the channel, our Ko-fi and Patreon page are linked below. Now on to the video. So this is where we should hopefully be at the end of this tutorial. So if you follow it along, this is where you'll be up to. And then in part 3 we'll be doing all of the detailing work like the checkers and weathering and stuff like that. So as I probably said on the previous video, what I tend to do is spray the armour plates first. What I'd sadly done is spray them the slightly wrong colours, so I've had to go over them with a bit of grey cere, as you can see. And we're now going to start painting the sections in Macragge blue. So the armour plates that you want in Macragge blue, give them a decent smooth coat of that. And we can start working on the other ones. I'm going to be painting up the side panels and the weapons as well on this video, so any colours that we're using on the body, we'll also use those on the weapons. Next up, we're going to use a little bit of Vallejo White, and we're just going to go over all of the panels that will be white on the Titan. So because it does in kind of half and half, I'm doing half the panels blue, half the panels white, except for the two shields at the front. So on the blue side of the carapace you will have a white missile launcher, and on the white side you'll have a blue missile launcher, that kind of thing, and it's just getting those so that you have the opposite colours on each section. So you can see where we're up to here with the carapace and the weapons parts painted up. Now I'm going to use some Citadel Retributor armour, which is conveniently not shown, just to paint up some of these smaller details. So around this little access door on the back, nice noisy truck going past there, I've got the window open because it's so hot in the loft. But this little access door at the back, we're also going to paint up some of the little hydraulics and sections like that with the gold too. So any bits that you fancy making them stand out, use a little bit of this gold. I'm going to be using a different colour on the piping and stuff which runs quite a lot around the Warlord Titan. There's quite a bit of piping on there. So you can see here some of the sections that I've used the Retributor armour on. You've got the top half of the Titan here, and then sections on the gun as well, the volcano cannons there, and sections on the missile launchers. We're now going to use a little bit of Citadel Mephiston Red. I'm going to use this to do some of the eye lenses and a little what look like lights and sensors within the armoured helm, and then there's also a few little bits dotted around. I'm going to do some of the cables with Mephiston Red too, just to add a little bit of colour dotted around the body of the Titan. So I mentioned earlier there's quite a bit of tubing and piping. For these we're going to use Citadel Fulgurite Copper. It's a really nice copper colour. I always think of copper pipes because of all the copper pipes you have running around your house. So we are using this to do all of the piping and cabling and stuff like that in the Titan itself. So you've got tons around the sides, you've also got tons on the back as well around that little gold hatchway that we've just painted with the Retributor armour. There's a few at the front as well on either side of the head and that sort of section behind it. Now I'm going to use Citadel Leadbelcher, and it takes ages, this layer. We're just going to be doing the armour trim. One of the reasons it takes a little bit longer on this is because when I was spraying it, the original white colour that I'd used had done the kind of textured paint. I don't think it had been shaken properly. And it just meant that when I was putting on the Leadbelcher, it was absorbing the moisture out of the paint pretty quickly, which is quite irritating, so it took quite a while to do that on this. But if you do all of the armour trim with Leadbelcher or Iron Hand Steel, something like that, you can't go wrong. So now a little bit of Vallejo Model Air Chrome, and we're just going to paint different little bits like the handrails and stuff, just to show some little different colours of metallics in there, and just to break up all of that single colour that makes up the majority of the Titan's body. Now we're going to use a little bit of Vallejo Black, and this is going to be just to do the housing on the las cannons and the heavy bolters on the Warlord Titan. So you've got a heavy bolter on either side of the head, and you have the las cannon one on each side at the rear. Like so. Next we're going to move on to the shades, and we're going to start with Citadel Drakenhof Nightshade. This is going to be to go around all of the blue, so carefully go around it all. Try not to get it onto any of the Leadbelcher armour trim. On that carapace, you just want to keep it to the blue as much as you possibly can. Can you hear any noises? The cat is trying to attack the wire from the microphone. Now we're going to use Citadel Apothecary White Contrast, and we're going to go over all of the white carapace with this. This will sink into the recesses and give it some nice shade, and then it makes it a lot easier to highlight and give it that kind of worn and used look. Next up is Citadel Agrax Earthshade. I'm going to use this to paint over all of the gold and also the fulgurite copper. So we'll give that a nice shade for when we start building up the colours again. Next up is Citadel Nuln Oil. We are going to paint all of the armour trim with this, so all the bits that are painted with Leadbelcher. The actual body itself was sprayed with Leadbelcher before starting the tutorial as well, so we're just going to give all of the Leadbelcher areas a good coat of Nuln Oil. That will darken it down, get into the recesses and show all those details. Next up, Citadel Druchii Violet. I'm going to use this just to paint all of the little red bits, so you've got those cables underneath and a couple of little spots of red on the lenses, kind of like its eyes, and also any other little red bits that you've put on there. There is what appears to be a little viewing window on the underside of the volcano cannons. I go over that with white a little bit later on and use two shades to colour that in, so it gives it like a fiery look. So the little bit that I'm shading there, we are going to do white a little bit later. Next up, Citadel Macragge Blue. We're going to start reapplying the colour to all of the pieces of blue carapace. So when you're reapplying this, think about what's sitting on top of it, where the light is going to catch it. So on the front of the helm there, you're not going to have the Macragge Blue going all the way to the back because you have that overhanging piece of carapace that will be shading that quite well. So think about where the shade's going to be coming down onto it and trying to highlight it as best you can so that it's not getting light to all those parts. You're going to have shaded areas in the recesses, other little patches of it. Now I'm going to mix a little bit of Vallejo White with the Macragge Blue, and then we're going to start to highlight this. Didn't want it to be too light compared to the previous layer, because otherwise it does stand out quite a lot once you come to varnish it. Final colour for the blue is going to be Citadel Rust Grey. I'm going to use this just to do edge highlights, a few little spot highlights on the carapace just to bring out some of those details. Now I'm going to use Vallejo White and start highlighting and colouring in the pieces of armour carapace. So when you're doing this, you want to think about where there's going to be shade. So above the line where I've stopped there is going to be shaded by where that piece of carapace looms over it. So you want to be thinking about things like that, as though the light's coming from above and what is going to be stopping that light and giving you that little bit of shade on each section just to make it that little bit more real. Now we're going to reapply the gold. This is mainly to go onto the Titanicus symbol on the shoulder here. And the reason for that is all the other parts are really, really small. We're going to be doing the hatchway at the back too. But most of the gold sections are really, really small, and once you've put the model together, you're not really going to see it unless you actually take it apart and look at it. So we're only going to do these Titanicus symbols and the ones on the rear side of the torso. Sort of these hinge bits here, and then the area around that hatchway at the back. With that done, we're now going to highlight the gold using Citadel Liberator gold. So again, thinking about where the light is, you want to have the top edges and top areas highlighted. Slightly off camera here, unfortunately, sorry. But the top areas and the top edges of this gold area highlighted with the Liberator gold. It's a nice lighter shade, which does stand up quite nicely and stand out from the Retributor armour. We're going to add some Vallejo Model Air Chrome to the Liberator Gold just to get that final lighter highlight. It's a really good colour this, it does stand out a lot because of the amount of pigment in that chrome colour. Mixing it with the Liberator Gold, it does give you that really nice light shade to do edge highlights and things like that with it, and give the effect of a really good shine on those golden sections. Now I'm going to use Citadel Mephiston Red and start reapplying the red colour to these big cables and stuff. So again, thinking about where the light's going to catch them, you're not going to have it on the underside of those cables because it's going to be heavily shaded from the head. The same with these parts here, you're mainly going to be doing the sides, possibly the top of the cables, but they are going to be quite shaded too, so mainly just the sides on these big ones. We're now going to highlight those cables with Citadel Sunz Scarlet. So you want to be doing about 50% of the area that you covered with the Mephiston Red with the Sunz Scarlet. So pretty quick layer this one, just a little touch up here and there. And the final colour we're going to use for those is Citadel Wild Rider Red, which I still find dead hard to say for some reason. But we're just going to do tiny little highlights on the cables with this, little spots of highlight on those little red lenses. We're also going to do the same colours on each of the missiles, so Mephiston Red to start, then we're going to use a little bit of Sunz Scarlet on each one, and then a tiny little highlight with the Wild Rider Red, and that'll get those missiles looking great. for when you put them on top of the Titan. So you can see here, you've got this curved part, and this is going to be where there's going to be shaded beneath, or there's going to be kind of weathering on the sections beneath where they drip down onto the sections below. So on all these edges, you're going to have little runs, so we're going to use a little bit of Seraphim Sepia to show kind of like rust spots or rust drips, and that kind of goes in like a very long half circle kind of thing, like a piece of a crescent from one corner to the other corner. And that will be for the side of the carapace where that bulges out and you've got that crescent of carapace sticking out. Where that drip down onto the gun, you're going to have a little bit of sepia there. I will be returning to this a little bit once we go on to part 3 and doing a bit more weathering and getting it looking a bit more rough and ready. I'm going to use a tiny little bit of Citadel Agrax Earthshade. I'm going to use this to do some runs from the gold, and also just to discolour sort of the top edges of any of the trim, things like that, as though dirt has gathered there. The big things are probably going to have quite a bit of grime and stuff build on them. So across these edges, sort of the bottom part of the trim, across the top edge there, we are going to add some dirt and grime using the Agrax Earthshade. Now I'm going to use some Citadel Cassandora Yellow. And this is going to be to do this little window bit that I was talking about before. I was saying about painting it white. Paint that white and then give that a run of Cassandora Yellow on each one. And I'm just getting that to look a little bit fiery. I wasn't really sure what it was for, whether it was a window looking in or it was for viewing people looking out. Then I'm going to use a tiny little bit of Citadel Fugan Orange, and we are going to just put that around the edges of that window as though it's all fiery inside, as it is a volcano cannon, so it's going to be pretty hot. Finally, we're going to use a tiny little spot of white, and we're just going to do a little highlight in the middle of the yellow there, where it's going to be really, really hot. And with that done, we have finished this part of the tutorial. And this is the so far completed Legio Tempestus Warlord Titan. We'll have part 3 coming up in the next few weeks, hopefully, with all the detailing work going on. Thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and if you have, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future content. Also, think about subscribing to some of our other social media, linked below. Thanks very much. If you like the channel and you enjoy the content and you'd like to support me, my Ko-fi and Patreon pages are linked below. Thanks very much.